Hi, this is Nathan Johnson, host of Veterans Voices. This is a special clip of a recent interview with Karl Marlantes, Vietnam veteran, Navy Cross recipient, author, and who was recently involved in the documentary on the Vietnam War. Please enjoy this clip and be sure to tune in to Veterans Voices every third Monday on CCTV and on Facebook.
Karl Marlantes is a Rhodes Scholar and a Marine who served in the Vietnam War. He is the author of two incandescently brilliant books, Matterhorn and What It Is Like to Go to War. His wisdom is born from both lived experience and insightful analysis. Welcome to the show, Karl. So good to have you.
No, thank you for having me on.
So we wanted to talk a little bit about this Vietnam War documentary. Ken Burns and Lynn Novick's PBS series, The Vietnam War, has been described as a landmark documentary. Can you tell us what makes it so?
Well, I think it's landmark because, first of all, it's the most comprehensive documentary that I know of. I mean, they start with the French in 1854 and bring it all the way through. And it's the other thing is how comprehensive it is. I mean, they've dug up new tapes. They have presidents of the United States of all political parties saying things on the telephone that were just the opposite of what they were saying to the American people. They've uncovered, new information that just sort of astounds me. And I think that the other thing, which is actually even bigger than that, is how even-handed they've dealt with it. I mean, most documentaries try to prove a point. But I mean, a lot of television tries to prove a point, and they're just laying it out. They've got people who were in the anti-war movement. They've got, veterans of the North Vietnamese Army. They've got veterans of the South Vietnamese Army. They've, of course, got veterans from our own Army and Marine Corps, and everybody just says what they say, and the camera just, has the pictures, and there's the voice, and the viewer just gets to sort of listen to it all. And I think it's the other thing about comprehensive is it's like, I think, about 20 hours of documentary. That's an amazingly large documentary. They took 10 years to put it together.
I saw the first episode last night. It was really powerful, and you talked about how, I think the opening quote for the documentary was about how the Vietnam War in many ways was like perhaps having an alcoholic parent where nobody really talked about it. While working on the Vietnam War film project, did you come to appreciate any new truths about the war, given all of the angles they presented?
Well, yeah, quite a few. I mean, I think that one of them that just knocked my socks off is that we weren't fighting Ho Chi Minh. He was out of power, I think, in 1959, and our government didn't even know it. There was a guy named Le Duan that was the power guy in Hanoi, and he just had Ho as a figurehead. And also General Giap. I mean, everybody was all worried, it's like when the Marines were surrounded at Quai Son, General Giap, the genius of Dien Bien Phu, was going to pull off another Dien Bien Phu. Well, he had been exiled to Hungary. He wasn't even there. And, so these sorts of things, I mean, I'm over there fighting, and I hear they're saying, we're fighting Ho Chi Minh and General Giap, and sorry, they weren't even there. So that was huge. The other thing that I found really interesting working on the film, and also it's in the film, is the veterans from the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong have a lot of bitterness and sadness about that war because they fought it with their hearts for to get freedom from the French and freedom from the Americans and for a lasting, equitable peace. And what did they end up with? A corrupt, totalitarian government, and they can't really speak freely, and there are, of course, they interviewed veterans who are in the government still or generals in the Army, and their statements are much more raw than these other people, but it was interesting for me to sort of the experience of the war and what was that all about is shared by both sides.
Yes. And it was interesting to me last night to learn more about Ho Chi Minh reaching out to presidents of our government for help, and you know, what were his real motives? I don't want to give anything away for those of you who are going to watch the show after this episode of Veterans Voices, but one of the themes in your writing, Karl, relates to the need to understand that aggression has always been a part of our culture and needs to be balanced with our higher values. Can you share some of your thinking about this in light of the Vietnam Film Project, the Vietnam War Film Project? And specifically, I'm curious about the implications of this for how we train those who go to combat and how we receive them back into society.
Well, that's a fairly broad topic.
Yeah.
3 questions there. I mean, first of all, I thought it was interesting that they opened with my comment about, you know, well, actually opened with the alcoholic parent comment, which was true, but the next thing that I was saying is that we're not nice. We're not the top animal on the food chain because we're nice. And I think that we have to come to a better understanding of this than just repressing it. And we're just an aggressive animal, and it's in our biology. It's not in our culture. It's in our biology. And if you try to repress something, it comes out in a very negative, warped way. I mean, the example is how Victorians tried to suppress sexuality, and you know, it comes out all kinds of twisted forms. You have to be able to incorporate it. You have to be able to see it. And what the trick is to be able to have your ego control, so that you can say, here it comes. Here it comes. Now I'm not going to let it take me over. I'm going to try and be in control of this. If you don't know it, if you don't recognize it in yourself, that's when the trouble really starts to happen. I think that one thing that they can do in training is to just understand what I call pseudo-speciation. It's a fancy word, but what it means is that you make another human being an animal. I mean, you know, a nip, a kraut, a haji, a towelhead, a sand nigger. I mean, there's all kinds of horrible names that we give to our enemies. And, you know, a lot of people are like horrified, like, well, that's dehumanizing. You can't do that. And I'm saying that no, it is dehumanizing, but there's a reason for it. It's because you can't pull the trigger if it's another human being. I mean, our soldiers and Marines are decent kids. They're usually 18, 19 years old. They've been raised in a Judeo-Christian culture. Thou shalt not kill. How do you get them to actually do the will of the Republic? Well, we turn the enemy into an animal. And then you can kill an animal, and an animal's trying to hurt your friends, it's trying to kill you. Then you pull the trigger. Well,
yeah, that's something I've often thought about, is that so much of what happens in war, we can actually be prepared to take revenge for people we love. We can be prepared to act and even enjoy experiences of being in combat, even enjoy acts of violence, and it doesn't mean that somebody is at core sociopathic.
That's right. No, I mean, I think that but the key is to bring the awareness. For example, if you told these kids, and especially if you can tell, you know, non-commissioned officers and officers about, like, just this mechanism we're talking about, when the battle's going on, it's going to be there. I mean, there's nobody going to stop it. But if everybody's aware of it, as soon as the battle's over, you get back into civilization again. I mean, civilization, I always say, is this like cobweb, thin sort of thing that holds us together, holds this violence in check. When you say that, though, but who's responsible for that? Well, actually, it's us, people. And I think that the higher your rank and the older you are, the more responsible you are for being the one that provides that check on our natural aggressions. I've got a great story about this. If it was in my book, if you mind me saying something that's in the book, but about we had been in combat, and we'd been fighting for days and had been assaulting, and then, you know, they had counterattacked, and I mean, there were dead bodies stacked up in front of our fighting holes, and I was going along making the usual hole check, and I saw some of these kids had put ears in their helmet. They'd cut ears off these bodies and stuck them in their helmet. Now, the first reaction, oh, that's horrible. Well, when you see the carnage that's going all around you, I mean, you know, bodies that have been hit by mortar shells, I mean, it's a couple of years in the helmet not going to bother you too much. But I knew that this was wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, this is a step too far. And I wasn't even angry at them. But what I did is I said, you can't do this. I know that they killed your friends, but you killed their friends. I mean, look, come on. You know, let's try and get it straight. So I said, I want you to go down and bury these bodies and put the ears back in with them. So, and it wasn't trivial because we were still getting some pot-shot sniper fire at us, but we went down in front of the lines and they dug the holes and to throw the bodies in, and they started crying. They started crying.
So,
and what had happened is that suddenly they weren't animals anymore. They were doing a human burial.
Right. There needs to be this return to the society that we come from and the end of the pseudo-speciation. And I would definitely recommend that everybody read your books. I wish we could talk for so much longer, but we have to go. But thank you so much, Karl, for coming on.
Well, it's great, Shauna. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay. Goodbye.
We hope you liked that clip. Again, please tune in to more episodes of Veterans Voices every third Monday on Contra Costa Television and on Facebook.